right, check. Looks like everything's working. All right, hello everybody, welcome back. We are here with Wrappy Hour live at Pack Expo. Little pre-show action for you. We got some great guests coming on. They're actually return guests, but it's the first time we've had them together. So really excited to dig into some content before the show and give you guys a little taste of what's going on at Pack Expo. So I guess just jumping into things, I'll have you guys reintroduce yourselves. Who wants to go first?
Sure. So I'm Justin Garski, segment manager for packaging, converting, print, and web here at Rockwell. And big fan of what you guys do and the collaboration we have together. And yeah, thanks for having me back. It was great.
Yeah, of course.
John Weddleton. I'm the product manager for our automation product line for Harpak-ULMA. So servicing the U.S. and Canada. Any type of automation where we consider product to pallet automation from primary loading, secondary packaging, palletization, all the way through. Anytime any of that is needed is when my team gets involved. Thanks for having me. Good to be back.
Yeah, it's exciting. You guys, both your episodes are pretty popular in the Wrappy Hour community, the very small community right now. But actually, one of the people I met here at Pack Expo had stuff to say about both your episodes.
All
so
right.
it was pretty cool that I was like, well, we're having both of them on, so it's going to be great. I guess the first thing I want to get into is specialization versus integration. John, you obviously specialize in automated solutions, and Justin, you're more on the controls side. So what I'm curious about is how do these areas complement one another and where they differ in creating efficient packaging systems.
So I think I'll start out a little bit. Our stuff, when we think about the controls, it's what goes into that machinery, it goes into that automation and integration piece, right? So it's our job to build you the most awesome snap-on toolbox and erector set possible, and it's up to you guys to do the magic, right? And I think our challenge on my side of the table is making sure that what we build meets your demands. That's the biggest challenge, and can we do it fast enough, right? But yeah, where are you guys at?
It's right. So where our specialization and customization comes in is really, taking the product into mind in the space that we have available, right? So okay, John, we're doing sliced bread, right? We're doing sliced bread. It goes through a bagger. We have to get it into a tote or something like that. Here's the space you have to do it in. You have to do 20 totes a minute or what have you. Yeah. But I also want you to automatically send the totes to the case packer and have that all done. It's really hard to find people. What are you going to do? So my job is really to take the speed, the requirements, and the product and fit it into that space. So now, mechanically, I'm thinking, what's going to fit first, right? Before we even go to Justin to Rockwell's side and okay, how do you guys make us look good? Because here's the mess I just gave you. You know what I mean? Because it's very challenging because people these days, I know you've been in 100 plants, thousands of plants as well. When they first built these plants, a lot of them, they weren't thinking about automation. They were thinking about, I have a product, I need to get into a package, I need to get it out the door, right? So now they're like, oh boy, people don't want to do those really menial tasks anymore. I need to automate, I need to be more efficient, I need to be more sustainable. So I need to automate, but I don't have the room. So long-winded way of saying, I really need to get creative and specialize in making sure we can do what the customer needs within the footprint without damaging the product. So then I take that and I turn to the Rockwell control side and said, make these all sing. You know what I mean? Okay. So I need the brain, right? The PLC. I need the customer to look at the cell or the system and see 10 different machines and be confident that it's actually kind of simple because I have this control system where they're all talking together. And I can have one central HMI touchscreen where I can run the whole thing.
And on the space part, right, I think that's one where we've got it in our booth here at Pack Expo, we've addressed the market with on-machine solutions, right? So when I think about some of the integration, right, it's kind of what happens after the individual skids, and when we used to do it, before Rockwell, you'd have refrigerator doors full of stuff, right,
Sure.
Controls, drives, servos. Now we've said, hey, what if you didn't have that big double refrigerator thing, just put it on the machine. So I think that's something we're trying to help you meet that mark and go, hey, how do we get it in this footprint? because everybody looks at that box and goes,
Where am I gonna put
this
it?
thing's a giant,
Yeah.
right? I got to put it up or down or.
It's a great point, Justin, because that's the other thing is it's almost a non-factor where it used to be a huge factor.
Yeah.
Because at the very end, when you're kind of working on layouts and then you get to the more detailed layouts where you actually see, and the customer is like, where are the controls cabinets? And sometimes they're on the machine already. And they're above, and there are doors underneath, right? That you can access the robots to, and they're not even thinking that's possible. They're thinking they need a bank of refrigerators against the wall and running cables, lines up and down and to dropping to each unit. But the way it is now, it's just so less, invasive.
And that also makes it, easier to go about doing. I mean, you said these plants aren't built with automation in mind, but if you're able to deliver a more whole system to somebody, or a more fully automated and integrated thing, it makes it less intensive. And I would love to do automation, but I don't have the space for it, so that's less of an excuse now, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
It really simplifies everything. Like the best thing that our customer can tell us after an FAT or an SAT is, well, yeah, that looks pretty simple.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, you're not reinventing the wheel here.
Yeah.
Like my team can learn this. We can service this. It's not something crazy. It's simple. You're just doing this. You're doing A and putting it in B, and you have a system that's controlling the whole thing. So it's a nice thing when you get that customer to say, yeah, this is a lot less intense than I thought it would be.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they get scared sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Automation can have a larger price tag.
Mm-hmm.
It's harder for people that don't have a lot of experience in automation calculate the ROI in their head. It's a lot of times just, okay, how many people can we save? The manual, the labor, how much of that is going away, because we can't fill those positions. So they'll calculate that, but you kind of have to bring it to life a little bit for them to help them understand the ROI.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a lot easier to do now.
And I think that's another reason why, we've got I believe it's a gold level partnership, right? So that means all the machines that you guys build, you lead with a Rockwell solution. And I think you mentioned that support piece, and for me, that's a huge thing that we stand behind, right? Like you run around North America, and I mean, anybody paying attention, that's our playbook for sales.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you need a programmer? Well, I can find you a Rockwell guy.
100%.
Oh, you need to find a Siemens guy? Maybe we can call somebody in Chicago and get them here next month, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's one of the things that we work with you guys on, is just making sure that support's there, not only from us to you, but from us to your users through you or in conjunction, right? To make it simple, to make it easy, to kind of mitigate all that risk.
It's a great point, Justin, because that's the question we get kind of towards the end of the quoting process. When they're getting comfortable with the solution, okay, this could work, it's going to pay us back within a couple of years, this could be a good thing. Now, where's my support? How am I getting support? What's a controls platform? What happens if on, Christmas Eve, when we're still running, because, we're doing, bread or something, and where it's the busiest time of our year, what happens if on Christmas Eve night we go down? How quickly can I get this drive?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So us coming in and being able to say, no, this is a full Rockwell machine, is a really, I've never had a customer say, oh no. It's a Rockwell machine?
Right.
Where am I going to get a
Sounds
part?
amazing.
How am I going to get service? My guys don't know Rockwell PLCs.
Yeah.
They all do.
It's like the only rental car we have for you is a Ferrari. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a great thing because the controls, the automation, more on the control side of the manager that comes in at the end, is it Rockwell? Like, yes, good news, we're a gold partner.
Right,
The whole thing
right.
can be Rockwell. Okay, good.
It's awesome.
No.
Speaking of downtime, do you guys do much in cheese?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I was on the phone with a cheese company the other day, and they go, so our machine between now and New Year's Day cannot shut down because it's football season, it's
Crazy.
this, and I went,
Charcuterie season.
It's crazy.
100%.
yeah.
It's like hearty meal season. You know?
Oh, yeah.
That's
It's that time. Fall.
sweatpants
Yeah.
weather. Yeah.
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 We're doing a project. We're case packing cheese right now out of a customer out of Wisconsin. Actually.
Okay.
Shocker.
Right, yeah.
But they're like, no, like we're doing the FAT.
Yeah.
Like, guys, no, we need to be running this, December. This new equipment has to be up because we're just, we're taking out the old, putting in the new, and you have like 3 days to do it because we can't be down for that long over the holidays. Yeah, she's.
So you guys are kind of like leading it, you're insinuating to it right now, but I am curious if there's any like specific example where like both of your expertise, not necessarily you guys personally working together, but just a time where like you've noticed that the controls and solution side of automation have really come together in a way that creates a really seamlessly integrated system. I know that there's kind of a big curtain behind the packaging world, and there's only so much you guys can talk about, but I am curious if there's anything you are able to talk about.
Yeah, I have to be a little bit careful, obviously, but I can say that we're currently installing a very large medical automation packaging system in the U.S. With full Allen Bradley Rockwell controls, and it's the interesting, again, if you see this in action, you're like, okay, it's doing A, it's putting in B, it's conveying over here, it's inspecting it. If it's bad, it kicks it out. It's going off to be flow wrapped, and it's going off to a pack out station. Pretty simple, but the devil's in the details, and it's really a very controls heavy project because it's medical. Product tracking rejects, keeping track of batches, it's all very important. So it's 4 robots, it's 3 wrapping machines, it's 5 pack out stations, all running simultaneously.
Wow.
And they can run different SKUs at any time. So a project like that is when the controls are even more important. Because one system doing all that handshaking and doing all that tracking, all that data collection, and like storage it's really what was the crux of the job, and why we're successful at it, and why we have had such a successful process on it so far.
Well, and I think the other piece that comes into it too, and I used to work for a German company that was more, I'd call it PC-based control, and I remember walking into a life sciences customer, and they said, hey, every once in a while our I/O drops off the network, and I'm looking at this thing, and they've got their Visual Studio Code up, and they're missing 3 lines of code around to reconnect if there's a fault.
Yep.
And I'm like, hey man, we got to add these 3 lines, and they go, can't we just put a different cable in? And I'm like, no. And it turns out, and this is probably where you guys are at, the verification and validation, like once that's validated, it's really expensive to modify those 3 lines, because now you have to do the whole V&V again.
100%.
And I think
V&V?
Verification and validation. So it's you've got your test procedure, and when you run the part, it says, yes, the machine ran as expected, stamp it, lock it, kind of like the power meter on your house, right? We put that little clip on there, don't ever cut the clip.
Yeah.
It's, and I think, there's a place for PC, but I think the simplicity and the ease of use and the familiarity you guys have with our platform kind of takes some of that out, right? Like, you don't have to worry about, did I write the right special driver magic? Nope, Ethernet IP, dropped it into the I/O tree.
Done.
Poof, it happens. We've tested it in our lab in Milwaukee, forwards, backwards, like, it just works, right? So I think that's kind of where the two come together, but super complicated, and the telemetry going back and forth to their databases for the part tracking, and it's intense.
That's
right?
where the
It's
complexity
crazy.
is.
Yeah.
The complexity is not in the system.
Yeah.
It's a lot of equipment, a lot of conveying and stuff, but that's not the complexity of the system is in the controls, in the HMI, in the tracking. We were going to, there was I think that very customer, like, we were asked if we could come back after validation to add some OE functionality, that we wanted to add a couple of different screens. And they're like, no way. No. Like, do it now or forever hold your peace, because you can't after validation. It's just, they'd have to revalidate everything in the medical industry. It's very intense and a process. So they're like, no, you got to do it now before SAT, because we're going to start validation right after SAT, which is a site acceptance test.
Yep.
So once the equipment's accepted, fully accepted, you're done, because we're going to validate.
For a decade.
Forever.
Right,
Yeah, we've had systems sit for 6 months as they're getting validated.
Wow.
We walk away, and that's just how long they have to wait to validate everything.
I mean, it's not something that happens overnight, but you guys did both just kind of touch on the flip side of that question, which is really what kind of challenges arise when you're trying to like seek that solution and controls integration. Obviously, it's nice to imagine like in a vacuum that things are going to work perfectly every time, but I feel like things hardly ever do. There's always hiccups and things like that. So what kind of hiccups do you see, and like what are the steps that you both take to kind of overcome that?
From an automation side, with this is equipment, right? Equipment breaks, they're failures. So what we try to do ahead of time is to be prepared for any failure that could happen.
Okay.
So we go through a process called an FMEA, which is a failure modes and effects analysis, and really it's just a fancy acronym of saying we're trying to foolproof the system because things are going to break. There's going to be a failure mode. Well, okay, you have two robots loading. If one breaks, can the other one go a little faster and maybe do go another 25%? So now instead of being down 50%, you're only down 25%. Things like that. Oh, if this whole cell goes down, I can't go down, guys. I'm the cheese. It's fall. I need to get these cheese cubes out the door. So can you just bypass the robot and we can do manual so that we don't go down on production? So I think that's one thing that we've found that we've instituted over the last couple of years that's helped us out a lot. Also helped us be a lot more successful even in FATs before it even gets in the field. And having successful FATs because we've already thought through what happens if X goes wrong and what do we do in case that happens. So
I think the other thing that helps you guys is some of the standardization, right? So yes, machinery is custom, especially when you start thinking about that automation and integration piece where it's the in-betweens. But you guys have standardized templates. You use these products, the interface, it's very, you've mitigated the risk because you're not starting from a complete blank sheet of paper every time. On our side of it, the biggest risk is new products, right? So before this show, we found an incompatibility with two of our on-machine products. We put them on a demo together, and then all of a sudden, all the red lights came on, and we went, uh-oh, we didn't find this one in debug, right? So for us, that's a go back to the firmware and tweak some of that in the lab. But
like how hard is it when you have a customer that's had one of your PLCs for 10 or 15 years, and they're being legacied or something like that, or there's something new and better for them, but to convince them to take something out and switch when that thing's worked so well for them for that long, that has to be a challenge.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you wouldn't be surprised. The number of PLC 5s that are still running
up.
factories,
I've seen them.
frightening.
It's crazy.
And it's these so the PLC 5.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you can.
Yeah, so
for including the layman here.
the PLC 5 predates both of us. Like it's been around for a long time.
Like
Let's
20
call
years?
it 40, 30 or 40. Like it's
I was just trying to
a long
thank
time.
you.
Yeah, right. So it was the PLC 5 and then the SLC and then kind of the compact and control logics and. Control Logics, which is our flagship, has been around for 20 years.
Okay.
We're putting that into context. Now,
Nice.
It's evolved over that time frame, but people are like, ooh, yeah. And you go, look, if something blows up, you will not run ever again. Like,
There's no
you're
pot
done.
to fix this.
Yeah, and they're like, well, but maybe we can find some on eBay. And I'm like, maybe not.
Good luck.
So that's a change. And then, the MicroLogic series, right? We have the Micro 1200, 1400, and some of those have been Silver Series, and we're starting to migrate them out. And people use these things so much, and they're like, well, why would we go to that 850 thing? I went, it's faster, it's cheaper, it's more modular, it's, don't be,
In their mind, it ain't broke.
And they're like, we can still order these, we're doing it. I'm like, you might want to consider, no. So it's a wild experience when you start thinking about it, and it's frustrating on my end because I look at it and go, in my background I was in field service for a half a dozen years, so I've been the guy.
You had your hands on these things.
You're calling back to the shop going, hey, I got this thing and it's older than me, what do I do, right?
Damn thing won't break though.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I know, obsolescence and I would say kind of future-proofing super important. And like one of these cheese places we were talking to, they said, hey, we have 3 of these iTracks, and they were the original iTracks we sold 10 years ago right after the acquisition. So it's vintage hardware at this
Yeah.
point, right? It was
Yeah.
startup hardware, and they're like, well, we can replace one of them, but we can't replace all three. But if we replace one, then we have spares for the other one. I went, I don't love it, but at least it's a start. Like, it's a good step forward. It gets you a little bit out of the hot water,
Yeah.
gives you a little buffer, and
Yeah.
if things start to get goofy, then we can look at what plan B through F are, right?
Right.
But yeah, it's all it's mind-boggling.
It's just funny. Some people, when you know this would make their lives easier, they can go faster. It's more well supported, but they rely on these things so bad. Andrew, like downtime is just the biggest killer.
Oh, it's a killer. Yeah,
It is the biggest
because
killer.
you're losing production and you're
Right.
like it's like a double loss.
Right. So it's like you can't. It's like a child going to bed without their favorite stuffed animal, right? It's gotten helped them get to sleep for these years and years, and now you tell them you take it away, take away the giraffe and give them a panda. They're like, well, no, I get the giraffe. I get to sleep every
What
night.
is this?
But no, the panda's bigger and fluffier, and it doesn't matter
Yeah.
because they've relied on it so heavily,
Okay.
and it's really saved their butts over the years. But yeah, so
Well, and even thinking about the diagnostics and the wiring, right? So thinking about motion control, we're probably old enough to remember analog 0 to 20, or plus or minus 10-volt signals
I
to
remember
get
all
your
the
con-
discrete buttons.
all of
and-
that.
Yeah.
And now it's all over Ethernet, right? So it's
Yeah.
kind of like, I don't know, taking an old school digital photo on a floppy to your iPhone in real time video where we're streaming on the internet, right? Like,
Yeah.
you can get so much more information and diagnostics out of these new products. It would actually help with downtime too, right? If done
Yeah.
right, because now all of a sudden you go, hey, I have a servo fault. Right? We were talking about batteries
Yeah.
earlier.
Yeah.
I have a battery fault. Can you give me any more explanation? Well, with these new products, they go, oh yeah, here's all of the things that we know, and here's exactly where your problem is. You go, oh, okay, well, I can fix that, versus it's not working.
Right.
Hmm.
Not yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting though,
That's-
because my next question was like how, obviously, data is playing a huge role in the current state of automation and everything, and I was curious how data collection and analytics provides better insights for producers and manufacturers, and you kind of already touched on it, but I'm sure there's loads more that you can do with the abundance of data that we have at our disposal. And it's scary how much data, not just in the packaging world, but just in general, how much data
Well,
gets
sitting
collected
in the
now.
room next to us is Alex, right?
Yeah.
Kind
Yeah.
of the architect of
Of
what
the
you guys
whole-
got cooking.
Yeah, the whole Industry 4.0
And it's-
innovation leader. Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, what you guys have going on is ahead of the market, and I think, some of the dialogues we have that you can already answer. Like, hey, Mr. OEM, when a customer calls, can you tell them why the machine has stopped the most frequently over the last 2 months? Everyone's like, no, you guys
We
can
can
do it,
right on board.
which is awesome.
Right.
Like that's the way.
Yeah, yeah. It's the information, the data is so important. Stuff like I was talking about before, which is with predictive maintenance and OEE, so that our customers can track how efficient their lines are running. So OEE is overall equipment effectiveness. And obviously everyone would love to run at 100%. A line, like a system at 85% is world-class OEE. So that shows you, there's nothing.
I actually did not
100%.
know that. That's surprising.
So nothing's perfect, right? 85% on especially one of my systems is really darn good.
Does that mean 15% downtime, or it's a
No,
mix of lost product and stuff
it
like
basically
that?
means if
I know there's an equation.
you take each of the individual components, say it's like a case packer like we have out here, and there's a case director, and there's a case closer, and there's a robot, and there's conveying, and there might be a labeling system. Each of those on their own run at about 99% OEE, right? But when you put them together, you keep ticking down.
It's like a
So-
parlay.
Yeah, exactly. So you tick down, and you can get, as long as you're above 85%, you're pretty good. But what that's saying is that each of those machines on their own, if you just give them good parts, at worst, they're going to run 99% in 4 hours. At worst. So
Okay.
it could be 100, but at worst, 98, 99%. So, but when you tick them down is when the OE gets lower and lower.
Gotcha.
But going back to the reason why OEE is so important and data collection is really one point of OEE is millions and millions of dollars. So a customer could go in there and they have a lot, we've all seen the whiteboards next to the line, and the shift manager or whomever is like, okay, we're supposed to run X, we ran Y, we're at 85%. but human error, that's not an exact science.
Yeah.
Now with the control side of things in the Industry 4.0, we're able to actually get the machine truth. It's telling it to the PLC immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not relying on a person to be like, oh, why were you down? What happened in this? Why is there a 3-second stop?
Or going through a whole day of production before you realize, like,
Right.
oh, we missed something,
Right. It's not, they're not going to say, like, ooh, we're actually 5 minutes late from lunch, or we started 5 minutes late because there was fire alarm, or something like that. So having it on board means the machine can't lie. It tells you right there and spits out the metric right away, so you know exactly what you're running. So we had a customer who thought they were running, like 88, 89%, but when we put the OEE calculator on the machine, they realized they were running like 65%.
Wow.
It's tens of millions of dollars. So that's why it's so important. So they just really need to understand what the system's doing. How efficient is it?
Yeah.
So that, and being able to see it in real time, like immediately, is huge to our customers.
When I used to do, you'd go out to people and kind of the time studies of old, right? You had a stopwatch and a clipboard, and the guy would go, well, I feel like this could run faster. And I'm like, what'd you have for lunch? Like, that might change your feelings pretty good. If you ate something heavy, maybe you're not feeling so good.
Yeah, right.
Oh
maybe you had a fight with your girlfriend. Maybe
Right.
maybe you're just a little sluggish today. Maybe it was yesterday was a Super Bowl.
Right.
Yeah.
But you can't lie to the machine.
Yeah.
The machine knows, and it can do anything from like microseconds down, which it can add up.
Yeah. That's
into real
incredible.
points. So yeah, like what we built for that customer, the medical customer, like you said before, it's like the top 10 reasons why you're down, right? Here are the top 10 reasons, and they can look at this at any time, and they just be like, oh, it's changeover, it's brake creep, it's whatever it is, it's a PLC issue, it's X issue. So that's another one of the newer screens that we're putting on all of our systems, and that helps out us as much as it helps out the customer. So our technicians, when they walk in, they're not blind, and they're like, the customer's saying it's doing X, that's why we're down, and they're not lying, but maybe they're not correct, and we can look at the actual OE data and say, actually, you're down because of this, and we can tell how efficient you're running. So it helps us out as much as it helps out the customer.
And I even think about remote support. Again, we make fun of the floppy disk thing, but at one point I flew from Minneapolis to Quebec, drove 3 hours, and this was back in the PC control days with a special card that went in the rack. I unplugged a mouse, cycled power, and the guy, with his heavy French accent, that is it.
And you did it. And that was it.
But if I had any of the data,
Yeah.
or they call up, hey, my machine doesn't work. What'd you do to it? Nothing.
Sure. It's like talking to a kid where it's like, why is there juice all over the floor?
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
It reprogrammed itself. Okay.
Programs don't break.
Right.
Unless you.
AI is not that smart yet. It's not rewriting its own code.
Not yet.
But I
I
think that helps you guys, number one, solve it over the phone, right? Because I'm guessing you don't have a fleet of guys hanging out going, oh, I wish I could get on an airplane to go.
100%.
So I think there's that workforce angle too, where the data allows you to address the workforce in a way that wasn't possible before,
Right.
which kind of should accelerate everything forward, right?
Yeah, we included on the remote maintenance on all of our automation.
Yeah.
Sometimes IT doesn't like to put like E1 modules in and things like
Sure.
that. They like their own, VPN or whatever way to get into the system. But we offer it standard with everything because, again, it helps us and them. We can get them up faster, save them a lot of money, and it doesn't tax our field service technicians that are out maybe doing something that needs to be on site, rather than doing a fruitless visit for money that the customer doesn't need to spend.
Yeah.
Well, and COVID kind of upended a lot of that
Yeah.
too, right? It was like, no,
It's
don't
all-
connect, and it was like, everybody can connect, and now
Everybody
it's like,
come on in.
in.
Yeah, or the plants are like, oh, you need a vaccine to come in. Like, well, we're doing an installation. These guys actually aren't vaccinated. Oh, we're just kidding. Come on in.
That's crazy.
Plant operates, or
we hit our startup date, or okay, maybe
We'll
just
allow
go in a
it.
different door.
yeah,
That's so funny.
It's true that, and then in the middle of COVID, we started doing all the remote FATs too, because we typically offer with all of our systems a full line FAT. So if you're like the system, out here, we're we're offloading off one of our thermoformers. Like you'd be able to see the thermoformer and the automation work together, and we'd like to do it at our facility in Spain, but COVID obviously that wasn't happening. So we did all the remote FATs, and what we started doing was mounting cameras inside the cells too, and a lot of our customers really liked that. We kept that going. That was a COVID thing that kind of kept going. It's up to them if they want it or not, but we'll mount the cameras inside the cell. Similar here, so how you can see our booth and our other booth at the end of the hallway.
Yep.
But they can, so that they can flip a switch and allow us to see what's going on in the robot cell. So if it's not a program issue, because we can already go into their PLC program, if it's just something maybe mechanical or a pump issue, we can see how the robot's acting and try to, in real time, service it.
That's awesome.
As somebody who's like still, I would say, pretty new to the industry, like I've been with Harpak over a year now, but a lot of this stuff still feels like incredibly new, and like learning about things like remote maintenance, like it, even though I'm coming in as a new brain, like you'd think it's like it wasn't done like that before that. It's kind of like one of those things where it's like, wow, I can't believe that there were that many like inefficiencies. And just from the marketing side, what I always come across, whether I'm talking about automation or sustainability or a certain market segment like meat or bakery or anything, it always seems like there's a lot of like more so than other industries in like the industrial world. It's kind of redundant, but like we're pretty held back a little bit. Like we're kind of behind the curve a little bit, but that presents a lot of opportunities to really accelerate towards the future, I think.
Yeah, innovation is driving efficiency and productivity. Like you said, where someone would waste a plane trip 3 days out of the office,
Their sanity.
yeah, to flip a switch, is now people with the innovation on the controls and the automation and AI side and Industry 4.0, you can do these things over the phone, and solve them like that. You're becoming more efficient, more productive, and that's getting people more, to have more successful businesses. So that's the thing you're seeing with how innovation and like the future, like things like sustainability, which you'll hear a billion times this week, right?
Yeah.
Because everyone wants to, lessen their carbon footprint. They want to run more efficiently, and how do they do that? You innovate and you automate, right? You run less defects, less human intervention, so you have less defects. You can run faster, you can run more efficiently, you can run safer, and that drives the sustainability part of it. So it's the best part of innovation for our industry anyway. It's driving efficiency.
Well, and I think two of the things that might be kind of leading up to this, number one, I think just executing the basics has gotten easier, right? Like I roll the clock back 20 years and you're like, ooh, motion control?
Seemed very
That's
scary.
going to be a little bit of work, right? And now you go, oh yeah, 36 axes, no problem, right? So I think that's part of it. And so now it allows us to focus on the innovation piece. And I think the tool sets are better too, right? Like whether it's the tool sets or the education, I see these kids coming out of school, they know Python and Ruby or what I'm not even going to pretend I'm not that guy. That's the guy next door here, right? But I think those tool sets have gotten either easier or more commonplace. So now all of a sudden the hurdle isn't, I got to move from A to B, or I have to control a temperature loop within a degree, right? Like that just works now, right? So
it's a given. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of our apps engineers was our customer in the meat industry. The meat industry runs all different SKUs all day long. It's very customized, and they have to be very, very flexible. So automation can be a challenge. But we were trying to help them out because they couldn't really even tell us how they were running. They couldn't tell us what, because their schedule changes every day. They just their operators just kind of get there and they kind of have a feel for what they have to do, what SKUs they have to run. But there wasn't any real metrics. And for automation, you need something repeatable. We need to know what we need to prepare for and what to build against. But I had never even heard of a Python program, and our apps engineer just whipped one up and basically just told them how they were running. And what they're trying to get into palletization, and it's very tricky, but there are ways around it, ways to find the higher volume SKUs and palletize those and then do the other one-offs manually. And it's funny, the program spit out that in some cases they would get a tote full of product and then have to wait 50 hours for that second one to come, because that's just how all over the map it was. But you could, without, to your point, this new generation and these new ways to solve these problems, and where before we'd have to go there and sit there for 3 weeks and study exactly what they were doing, right?
Clipboards and stopwatches.
Yes,
and
exactly.
The old spreadsheet and charting it out, and
He whipped this thing up and he's showing me how. I'm like, wow, I'm so glad there are people a lot smarter than me in this world, and he loved it. He's just eating it up. Him and Alexander can.
Yeah, I'm still hoping to get him on. He'll come on eventually. He's pretty slammed with Pack Expo.
He's the white whale.
Yeah, he is. Absolutely. I did want to just quick interlude to all of our audio-only listeners. I do apologize if there's a lot of beeping and crashing and banging. This is still a very active setup site right now, so a lot of things are crashing and banging around.
A lot of equipment getting put together right now and cleaned up.
Yeah, but we're in a nice little quiet spot, so hopefully it sounds all right for you guys.
We're at what, the 18-hour mark?
Yeah.
So they'll shut the lights down in about 6 hours. Carpet rolls out, and tomorrow it'll be air conditioned and magic again.
You walk in here like it was never looked like this.
It's getting a little toasty in here, I will say. But, one question I did want to ask, and I think we touched on it in both of our individual episodes, but I'd like to hear both of your thoughts in a more synergetic way, I guess. Like with the rise of automation, how do you see the role of like human operators evolving? Like as automation becomes, easier to invest in and, less scary for people, obviously the role of that human operator is going to change a lot. So I was wondering like what skills and expertise would be valuable for professionals in this changing landscape?
From my side, I see the operators being a lot more doing tasks that they don't mind doing all day. They're not so tedious, and they're safer. And there's a path, like a cultivation point. It's like a starting point. So say someone that comes out and just wants to get into that industry, needs a job, and that's where they start. They're not starting at this painstaking job where they have to break their back for 10 hours a day. Mm-hmm. They're doing something a little more involved. And it's a starting point to cultivate a career there, because there are hopefully automation is taking the way of those really dirty jobs, because but it's a fact. Like people aren't getting out of school like wanting to load steaks into a thermoformer all day. They're just not.
No.
Dirty jobs are very hard to do. A lot of the environments are wet and cold, and at least in the meat industry, and so it can be a very tough job. And they want to do something that they don't mind doing all day and that they can see a path forward for cultivation. And so I see it more as, maybe you don't have to, it's not like punching the clock as much. More it's like, because things like with the online trainings, I know we had one of our large customers just sent 10 of their people to our office for the week to do trainings.
Yep.
And, so it's not just, I don't want to say mindless work, I don't want to minimize the job, but it's not just moving things around all day. Like these people are now getting trained. People are getting trained to do real value tasks within the plant, and there's training for that. They're not just there and just out on a limb and just a number in a book, punching a clock. I think it's more. I think the jobs can just be better.
Okay.
I just think they safer and better, and they can stick around longer.
Yeah, the days of the Lucy and Ethel loading the chocolates into the wrapper.
Exactly. Classic punching the clock. Yep.
And I think that actually I'm going to tackle this during my innovation stage talk on Tuesday a little bit, but there's different levels of it, and I think about changeover as a big part, right? So there's the legacy hand crank, and so like we can read tape scales and tape measures. I'm not convinced my daughter who's 15 can. They're not there, right? So I'm looking at it going, okay, and so they make like I'm going to call it the encoder with the dummy light on it that says turn left or turn right, and I'll turn green when you get in the sweet spot.
Yeah.
Great, right? And what that does is, again, it lets you validate it, so it's gets you better quality product because it's where it was. Second shift didn't go, we ran it better, right? Big air quotes around that. And then there's kind of the full version where we go, look, let's just put a little motor on there with an encoder. We'll just do it. You don't have to think about it. So I think to your point, 25 years in this industry, Have I eliminated jobs? Yes. But I've never seen those people get laid off because of it. They always get repurposed somewhere else in the plant. And I forget where the stat came from that I'll talk to, but it was millions of jobs that'll go unfilled by like 2025 or something. And I'm going, we don't have a choice anymore. Like you can either automate and upskill, or you don't make cheese,
or you don't make
anything, right? Like we're there.
Yeah, it's right. People aren't coming out looking for these jobs, so you need to find a way to automate them or make them a lot easier with innovation. I'm not sure my 14-year-old can get from our house to her school, which is a mile down the road.
Right.
It's just a different way of learning these days. But yeah, those jobs. You bring up that point about us taking jobs away, because my friends, when they learn what I do, they always say, "Oh boy, they must love you." I think I said this on the last Wrappy Hour, but it's a true point. They must love you, seeing you walk through the plant. I'm like, honestly, everything that I've automated, at least over the last 5 years with Harpak-ULMA, are things that people aren't going to do 5 years from now.
Palletizing boxes. Nobody wants to lift the 50-pound bags of steaks every minute. I'm putting like
100%.
It sucks.
You can't do it, and our customers can't find the people to do it, and it's just getting worse and worse. It's not going away, like you said, and something has to do it.
Yeah.
So
something's got to give, and that's just how economies change too. It's not just in the packaging world; it's kind of everywhere. Like nobody wants to work these grimy jobs like that anymore, and it's just kind of where we've evolved here.
And if we do it right, that operator that used to do the really bad job, they get to become an operator and, work smarter, right? They're thinking more, they're interacting, they're troubleshooting here and there. They're probably making more money too, right? Like and you can take a break without shutting the line down sometimes, right? Like
they're happier at their job.
Absolutely.
They have a path forward within the company, and they're making more money.
Well, the turnover is the big piece of it, right?
Yeah,
it's not that people aren't even going in. It's even if they do come in and decide they want to work this job, they're out of there real fast.
Yeah, we customers are all the time like, we'll hire 5 people on Monday, and by lunch on Tuesday, there's one left.
Yeah.
And this was like more than the COVID times, but because they get, I can't do this all day.
Yeah. No, that's crazy. I wanted to finish off with 2 more questions, I guess. I know we've already been taking off a lot of time, and it's not getting any cooler in here. So, some advice that you would give to industry professionals. So, what advice would you guys have for packaging professionals looking to leverage automation solutions or controls?
I would say from our end, it's work with your local resources, right? So when I was a customer, I did a terrible job leaning on my suppliers to get information.
Okay.
So we'd sit in a corner with books, stacks and stacks of books, right? Because the internet didn't have everything on it. And you figured all this stuff out by yourself, right? And I run into this with OEMs today where they'll call you after they've spent 3 weeks just bashing their head into the wall, right? And then they call and go, hey, what about this? And they go, well, let me ask my smart guy. And the smart guy goes, oh, just bloop, and it's done, right? So I would say, lean on those local resources, whether that's your distributor, whether that's your automation supplier for an end user. It's probably lean on you guys.
Yep.
Don't try to do it alone. There's a lot of people out there that can share the knowledge, and I've been trying to work myself out of a job for a long time. And that's the approach I take. Like, if you've got a question, I want to make sure that you understand it, so you don't have to ask it again. And I think there's a lot of that mentality out there. Like, together we can continue to upskill and do it. But you got to ask the question. Like, I don't know what you don't know, and even some of the questions that you've thrown out there, we're like, hey, what does that actually mean? Ask, right?
Yeah.
If you've asked it 10 times, then I'm going to give you the side eye, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, lean on those people. That's what they're there for, right? So.
I mean, it goes back to the old adage, right? There's no stupid questions, just stupid people that don't ask questions. And I think that's definitely a big thing.
For sure.
Yeah. From my side, it's actually along the same lines as Justin's, where my advice would be collaborative with your with your supplier, whomever it may be. When it comes to automation, it's not cookie cutter. So be collaborative. The best projects that I've had the best communication and collaboration with my customers. And it's the calls. Maybe you're doing 3 or 4 calls a week and maybe they're only for 5 minutes, maybe they're for 1 minute, but it's the collaboration so that it's going to help you in the long run. So don't be afraid to collaborate with your automation or packaging supplier, because in the end, it's going to help you out a lot. Because there are those even those little questions up front can save a long time in the end.
The other thing I'll add is find a partner and stick with them.
Yeah.
Don't continually shop, right?
Yeah.
Like we see this on our side where a customer will go to work with an OEM. That OEM, like you just described, has that great relationship, and then
Then they go
next project they shop it for 10% less, and the results never pan out, right? So I know, I'm sure there's procurement folks out there going, oh man, this guy's crazy, but sometimes the cost of the automation isn't really the problem, right? It's did you get a solution?
Right.
And, that part of why we like you guys as a gold partner is we know when you deliver something with our stuff in it, we don't have to ask if it's going to work. We know. There's a lot of booths here with a lot of our stuff. Results may vary. Right? So.
That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. Kevin Roach is walking by.
He's on the Wrappy Hour.
For anybody wanting
Whether he likes it or not.
He didn't even know.
Cameo.
Yep. Featured cameo.
There he is.
He's back.
So this is actually a great way to finish it, I think. So we're obviously here at Pack Expo, which is really exciting. I'm super stoked that you guys are here for my first live episode of Wrappy Hour, which is really exciting. Don't think we have any active listeners, but it's still cool that people can tune in and listen, and I'm sure that there will be a lot more interest tomorrow. But one of the things I wanted to ask both of you is A, what you're really excited for and what you love about coming to this show, and 2, I want to hear a little bit about your presentation.
Sure.
That you got going
sure.
on.
You want to start? Or you want me to start?
I'll start so you can finish with a bang.
All right.
I'll just set you up.
No pressure.
No pressure. Why I love coming to the show is probably it's the best opportunity that I get to have 10 or 15 face-to-face meetings with my customers without having to get on an airplane or any, you can get so much done, and that's why things like these are so cool at these shows, is that is the FaceTime. It's so critical, building relationships, talking about projects, so having that face-to-face time is just so important, and really, I really love that. The other thing is seeing, I usually have to do it because the days are so busy here, but maybe getting here a little early and walking the show a little bit and seeing what's out there, because sometimes you get so enveloped in your own thing where you start forgetting what else is out there. You can look on LinkedIn and whatnot, but sometimes it's just some of these booths here are just incredible. It's some incredible what people are doing, and it's things that I want us to do at some point. So I would say just the innovation in general and the face-to-face meetings with the customers are just huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, the density of people is
crazy.
awesome. And I think, I got in Friday. I don't know when you guys got in.
I just got in this morning, yeah.
Yeah. But it's nice on setup days. It's chaotic, right? It's loud, it's hot. But you're able to sit down with some of these guys that you know and you haven't seen in months, right? And, I know in North America we've got 65 gold partners. So even if I saw one a week, I still can't see them all in a year. I can see a lot of them here. So I'll echo that. It's awesome. It's nice to see what people bring that's state of the art, right? I know we've got one down the hall that is not running on Rockwell, but it's super cool, and I'm excited to have that discussion with you guys later. So I think that's great. And I think some of the emerging tech that you'll see, the big swings, right, that never been done before. Not so much in Vegas, but in Chicago, there's always that lower hall where there's I'm going to call it the East Asia market. Yeah. And it's all these really crazy little trinkets, and you go, I wonder which one of those we should acquire to bring into the portfolio,
great
or
ideas,
how does it...
Innovative, but
not scaled or not
not scaled
market.
at all, right, just raw.
So I love those sorts of things because, with iTrack and MagnaMotion, it's always been, well, how do you get power? How do you do comms out on these vehicles? And we have partners now that do that sort of thing. So
It's a total mix
cool.
of players, right? Like you've got people like us and Rockwell that are, been in the business forever.
Yeah.
And, I mean, are innovating, but still have like a pretty standard, reliable amount of solutions already. And then you have some people that just have like, a 10 by 10 booth setup.
with
and
a
they're
really
like,
cool idea.
but like a really awesome idea.
And
It's
really
just-
cool equipment.
yeah. It's cool for me to see as like a marketing guy, just like seeing the way that how every booth is set up differently, but also just how differently it's all marketed, and you learn a lot. I mean, you guys have been in the industry forever. For somebody who's got a lot less exposure to the industry, it's like a crash course. That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely, yeah. And to your other question, so Tuesday on the innovation stage, I'm going to talk a lot about the workforce and how we address that with the flexibility. So some of that same message. You got the 30-second version today, and apparently I have to do that for 25 minutes. So
okay.
we'll tell some stories, but same message, right, is how do we do it smarter? And then Wednesday kind of gets back to what you guys were talking about with the data analytics. So one of the things we're highlighting here is this idea of a data-ready machine. You guys are already there. When we go around the floor here, most of these machines are islands of automation that have not been designed to connect to the network at all. And so the idea is, what if we, and some of it follows like the Pack-ML standards, right? Like, can you package these things up in a, what we call a smart object, and make that machine egress ready? Because we know someday those customers will need to send it somewhere. We don't know if that's tomorrow or 5 years from now when they finally make that jump, and you guys face that too. But that's the kind of the Wednesday topic, is how do we, what do we look at towards the future? So
Very cool.
Thankfully, you guys are on that. You're already doing it. And I have to ask, I know you guys were up to like double-digit customers using that. What is there a current count? Are you able to share
I'm not
that?
sure what the count is now, because we just brought on, I think, 2 more, including the medical customer.
Yeah.
So I think it's 10 or 12,
Which is awesome.
which is awesome. I mean, I started with Harpak-ULMA in 2018, and Pack Expo Chicago that year was really when we introduced the partnership with Rockwell and PTC.
Oh, okay.
So we credit to Blake and to Kevin Roach and to Jim Heppelman for PTC for like getting this together, and really I think being about 2 years ahead of the rest of the packaging industry when it comes to this stuff. So now we're in a different spot now, and now we have pilots that are active with some of our largest customers too.
That's awesome.
So we had a nice head start on it, and we have a whole team behind it.
And showing great results,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that's the... it's one thing to get stuck in the pilot purgatory, but you guys are able to turn around, and I know with like your work instruction stuff, you embed the OEE with it to be able to go, okay, here's what it was before, and here's what it is after. Like, that's awesome. I'm excited. I think that's where we're going, and you guys are already there.
Yeah.
So.
It's very good to have really smart people, a lot smarter than you.
How do you think I feel running a podcast about packaging? But thanks again so much for coming on, guys. This was awesome. I think you guys gave some great feedback, and I look forward to hearing what other people think about it. If you're listening post-show, we hope that you enjoyed this. We'll have a few more coming out throughout the show. We've got some very special guests coming on, so excited for that. And I'll let you guys go run free.
All right.
Cheers, guys. Thanks so much.
Cheers.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
That's a wrap, everybody. Thanks.